Hello, and thank you for joining us for the 7th in our Work Study Primer series. Today our discussion is on onboarding. Today's presentation is adapted from one originally done August 1st, 2018 for Work Study Supervisors and is being recorded in the middle of August, specifically August 15th, 2018. As a reminder, for those of you who are interested in other parts of the WS Primer series, videos have been created, recorded, and links placed on the Supervisor Resources site in JobX, which you can reach by Googling UNC Work Study and clicking the link in the middle of the page titled Supervisors. You might note that a number of presentations are listed here, and there are still more to come this fall. So stay with us as we continue to increase the number of educational opportunities and trainings offered through this program. So today we'll be talking about onboarding, which strictly speaking is the action or process of integrating an employee into an existing work structure, familiarizing them with their duties, their coworkers, their clients, their customers, so on and so forth. Within the Federal Work Study Program and the Carolina Works Program, collectively called the WS or Work Study Program at UNC, that is relegated into four sections. The first is Work Study Training. The second are Human Resources component. Third are Logistical and Regulatory Training. And the fourth are Orientation, what most people classically think of when the term onboarding is used. WS training section of onboarding is actually very simple for supervisors. All students, just like their supervisors, are required to complete an annual training in Sakai. Now this is different from the training supervisors go through, let me make that distinction, but it is just as required. So in order to complete onboarding, students have to go to the website listed here, complete the associated quiz with a 100% score, and provide proof of that 100% score to their supervisor via email, a printout of the screenshot, so on and so forth. Unlike previous years, students aren't required to submit both the 100% score and the certification form. The certification form has been embedded into the WS training quiz. The next section of onboarding deals with human resources. These are the items students need to complete in order to remain in compliance with federal employment law. These include most notably I-9 verification, payroll withholding on both federal and state levels, and for students who are employed under the university, not necessarily with our off-campus partners, but for the university, they have to enroll in direct deposit. Students will need to do these with the Human Resource Officer or Shared Services Center for your department or organization. And it's very important to know that students cannot be allowed to work until this process has been satisfactorily completed, as doing so would violate federal employment law as well as university regulations for our university departments. Logistical and regulatory training is pretty simple. For students who are on campus and will be using the TIM system, they'll need to go through a 15-minute video orientation on how to utilize TIM. Now this can actually be done on the student's first day of employment, provided they do this before taking on any other additional duties. The video is here at the link and looks something like this. For those of you who are off-campus supervisors who may not have TIM as your time management system, please note this is not required of you. Safety and other job-specific trainings also need to be completed before a student assumes any real duties. These are highly variable by position. In most cases, students have additional training to go through, whether it is confidentiality, information management, some type of safety such as a bloodborne pathogen or biosafety level, or they may need to go through an additional security screening if they're going to be working with highly confidential information or agents. Please make sure that you are completing these processes before the student begins their duty, not just starting them in case the student is not found to be eligible to continue on with the duties of that position as required. A new part of the onboarding process this year is the review of the evaluation form. In past years, we have required evaluation forms, but we have not been very visible and stringent about enforcing that students and supervisors need to complete these. This is changing for the 18-19 year due to required enforcement of federal regulations, which does require a regular evaluation process. Now, the evaluation form for the work study program has been specifically designed with the students and supervisors in mind. including specific parts of the evaluation that are individualized based on the student and the position that they are filling. It's important to note that this is not the university standard evaluation form. It is purpose developed for this program and seeks to maximize the amount of constructive feedback students are provided while minimizing the amount of time required to complete this process. The evaluation form can be found on the supervisor website. Again, if you'll Google UNC Work Study, click on the supervisor link in the middle of the resulting page, and if you look down on the left under the resources section, you'll find both an example evaluation, an evaluation form that is blank for you to fill out, and a completed evaluation form as an example for you to utilize. There's a few sections of this form that need to be filled out specific for the student in the position. We'll outline these in this presentation, and we'll have a more thorough presentation on the evaluation process a little later on in the WS Primer series. So specifically, these are the sections that are customized to the student and the position, and that information needs to be shared with the student upon hiring so they know how they're going to be evaluated for the semester and for the year. The first of these is the learning outcomes section. These learning outcomes are drawn directly from the job posting. Supervisors would have selected at least 3 of these when setting up the position. Supervisors will simply draw 3 or 4 of these learning outcomes, skill-based learning outcomes, that they think are most relevant to the job, place them in this form, and share them with the students. Section 4, additional position-specific tasks and attributes. These are any items specific to the job that the student will be evaluated on. The form is set up for 5 of these, so again, choose the 5 most important tasks or attributes students need to complete in the position. List them out here, share that with the student at the beginning of the year. Section 6 is goals for the future. These are areas that may not be current parts of the duties or skills the student is being judged on, but things that you want the student to be completing, achieving, or attaining during their time with you or during the work study program. You'll note the form has room for 3 goals, as well as sections for how those goals will be measured. This is very important so that students know not just what they're supposed to achieve, but how they will be determined to have either met or not met those goals. There's also a new tool that we highly recommend you share with the student at this point. Versions are listed on the student portion of the UNC Work Study website, JobX, and the supervisor version. I'll show you that link in a minute, but the tool is called the Hour Planner. It was requested at the July training session by a supervisor, and we worked to create that for you. Essentially, it allows the student to plan out their hours for the year, accounting for times when the student may not be working, such as spring break or breaks between the fall and spring semesters, and essentially gives student control over how much of their award they'll earn. Now, you might question, why is this necessary? Students can do the math to divide out how much they earn and how much they have in their award and figure out that number. Well, first of all, they sort of forget about holidays and breaks and tests, and that not every week in the semester is the same as all the other weeks. Also, students have historically shown an inability to correctly estimate the amount of the awards they'll earn. So if you look at the items in blue, these are the amounts of the awards that students expected to earn based on the 2017-18 annual survey, and the trend line looks something like this. And then the gray lines are the actual amount of awards that students earned during 17-18. And it's a little hard to see from this picture, but when we align them, you can see that students are always, in large numbers, earning less than they had predicted. So giving them a tool to help them plan out their hours is extremely beneficial in helping the actual amount earned more closely resemble the amount that students are estimating and expecting to earn during the academic year. So to find the Hour Planner tool, for you as a supervisor, again, Google UNC Work Study, click on the supervisor link in the middle of the page, and then look on the bottom left side of that screen under the Tools section, and you'll see a link to the Hour Planner here. On the student side, they can find the same information by going to the student version of the page and clicking on the Work Schedule Planner. We've given it a slightly different name for the students to more closely illuminate the purpose for them. Now, I apologize for the size of this image. It is a bit small, but essentially you can see there is a very strong resemblance to the hour tracker for those of you who've been with the program before. This sheet is intentionally set up to intentionally designed to resemble that so that students can compare the hours that they've planned out with the hours that they're actually logging. But for the purpose of today, in terms of onboarding, the important thing here is this is a tool that you can hand the student where they put their name, their allotment, their hourly rate in here. You can see that at the top in the green and blue boxes. And then in these yellow boxes, students can drop in the number of hours they expect to work at each pay period and see how much of their award that they will have left to earn and the number of hours that correlates with across the course of the semester. For those of you with work study positions, you'll only need the first 2 blocks that corresponds to the fall and spring terms. For those of you who are overseeing Carolina Works positions and have elected to do fall, spring, and summer students, there are, of course, 3 sets of blocks here to reflect the 3 terms that students will be enrolled in. The last part of onboarding is the orientation, which is what people typically think of when they hear the term onboarding. Now, this is really about the goals and expectations, and for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to say goals are what you want the students to accomplish and how they would go about accomplishing them. And the expectations are how do you expect them to act while pursuing those goals. So typically goals are things like what protocols do we give them, standard procedures, what feedback, what milestones they have to get through, what are you wanting them to accomplish in terms of duties and time frames, possibly outlined in the job description. Those are fairly laid out and normally very well thought through by supervisors. What may not be as well thought through is this expectation bit. For a lot of our students, this may be their first job or very likely their first professional job. So items like dress code, or how to properly contact a supervisor if a student is going to be late or absent may not be common knowledge. As such, we've listed some areas here that you might want to think about covering with the student, but the most important lesson that we can offer is don't assume that students are aware, knowledgeable of the goals and expectations that you have for them. Simply put, they may not have the experience or they may not have the understanding that you have of the position. So we always recommend as a best practice, discuss these items with the student during the onboarding process, and whenever possible, provide a written copy of these goals and expectations to the student so it's very clear your expectations, your goals for them, and the students are more easily able to meet you on those goals and expectations. Also part of the orientation, typically there is a tour of the workspace so that students know the layout of the building, where they'll be working, where any materials they might be using are, an explanation of equipment, operational and safety, so that students can pursue their position without due risk, and then pointing out hazards. Some of these are as simple as this is a liquid nitrogen tank, it's at negative 80 degrees Celsius, you really don't want to touch this without proper protection, or this is a shock hazard, this coworker may not be the most suitable for you to go to as they are out of the office a lot. And of course the emergency protocols that go with those hazards. You also want to introduce the student to other people in the workspace, and more importantly, how that student might interact with these coworkers. Often students are brought around and introduced to everyone, but they can't remember names or how that person interacts with their roles. So if possible, if you have just a regular little Word document with the name, the face, and the duties of people in that workspace, especially if you have a large office, lab, workspace, number of coworkers for the student, it's really beneficial to the student to receive that information, either paper or online, just so they can start to learn who they're going to be working with and how they should be interacting with those people. We also highly recommend 2 things before the student ever shows up. One, have a training plan in place for that first day, so that you have a protocol to walk the student through so that nothing is missed. And then past that first day, how do you move the student from unaware of their duties and unknowledgeable of the position to being fully self-sufficient and able to operate in the steps in between. We also recommend during the very first day with the student establishing a work schedule. If you can ask for the student's class schedule before you meet with them and compare that to when you'll need assistance, and then during that initial orientation as part of the first day, cover when you expect the student to be in and work out a mutually agreeable schedule. It does tend to have far fewer issues than a sort of ad hoc put together, come whenever you want sort of situation. I also would strongly recommend that when reviewing the work schedule, covering your expectations on reliability, filling out the timesheet or the hour planner, and your protocols for if the student isn't going to be able to make the work that day, how would you like them to address that issue? Again, for a shortcut through this process, we do offer a hiring and onboarding checklist. Again, Google UNC Work Study, click the Supervisor Resources link in the middle of the page and look under Resources. You'll find it here. This is sort of a one-size-fits-all, which you will definitely want to customize to your individual workspace and needs, but it is a good place to get started. And sort of as motivation, the reason we spend so much time talking about onboarding is that we found it is a crucial factor in a number of aspects of the program. The 11X on the screen in front of you represents a finding from the 2017-18 survey, which basically amounts to students who were provided with a quality orientation, something more than just an hour, were 11 times less likely to have absenteeism issue, performance issues, to be terminated, and to get some positive gains out of the position. They're also 11 times more likely for supervisors to be happy with the outcomes of this position. So while it seems like this is a lot of information, a lot of steps, the payoff that comes from it is certainly well worth the investment. All right, that is the presentation on onboarding. I hope you found it beneficial. Again, if you ever need to contact the work study team, either myself, Josh Leonard, or my teammate, Thomas Harper, you can reach us at work-study@unc.edu. And to find all of the resources that you've seen in this presentation, you can simply Google UNC Work Study, or you can use the URL in the slide in front of you. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to working with you in the Work Study program.